Before the sun rose over occupied Poland, trains were already moving. Packed inside were thousands of people, families, children, the elderly, carried toward a place many had never heard of. A place called Auschwitz-Birkenau. From the outside, it looked like an industrial complex. Fences, guard towers, railway tracks disappearing into the distance. But inside, it was something else entirely. A system designed not just to imprison, but to strip away identity, dignity, and hope. This is what a single day could feel like inside one of the most infamous camps of the Holocaust. Morning did not begin with light. It began with sound. A sharp whistle cut through the freezing air before dawn. Prisoners woke instantly, not because they were rested, but because hesitation could bring punishment. Wooden barracks, overcrowded and poorly insulated, held rows of narrow bunks stacked one above another. Bodies pressed together for warmth through the night. The cold was constant. In winter, frost clung to the walls. In summer, the air turned suffocating. Sleep was never enough. As prisoners stepped outside, the camp revealed itself in the gray light of early morning. Endless rows of barracks. Barbed wire fences stretching in every direction. Guard towers looming overhead, where armed sentries watched every movement. Roll call, appel, was the first ordeal of the day. Thousands stood in formation for hours, regardless of weather. Snow, rain, or burning sun, it made no difference. Prisoners were counted again and again. If numbers didn't match, no one moved. They simply stood there, waiting, sometimes for hours, until the count was corrected. Hunger was already present. It never really left. Breakfast, if it could be called that, was minimal. Often a small portion of dark liquid passed as coffee and a piece of bread that had to last. Every crumb mattered. Some saved it. Some ate it immediately. Either choice came with risk. After roll call, work began. Columns of prisoners moved out under guard, their striped uniforms thin against the cold. Some were sent to construction sites, others to factories, others to carry heavy materials across the camp. The work was exhausting, repetitive, and often meaningless, designed as much to break the spirit as to produce results. Communication was quiet, careful. A glance, a whisper, a shared moment could mean everything. In a place designed to isolate, even the smallest human connection mattered. Throughout the camp, the system operated with precision. Schedules, routines, movements, everything was controlled. It was not chaos. It was organized. And that made it even more terrifying. Because this was not a temporary place. For many, this was where their world ended. By mid-morning, the rhythm of the camp had fully taken hold. Lines of prisoners moved in silence across the grounds of Auschwitz-Birkenau, each step watched, each movement controlled. Guards observed from towers and patrol routes, ensuring that no one broke formation. Work was relentless. Some prisoners were assigned to construction, forced to expand the very camp that imprisoned them. They carried heavy stones, dug trenches, and erected structures under constant supervision. Others worked in nearby industrial facilities, where long hours and dangerous conditions wore them down physically and mentally. There were also those given roles inside the camp itself. These prisoners handled tasks that kept the system running, distributing food, maintaining barracks, or managing supplies. While these positions sometimes offered slightly better chances of survival, they came with moral and emotional burdens that were impossible to escape. Every action inside the camp was shaped by one reality: control. Orders were given without explanation, and obedience was expected instantly. Hesitation, confusion, or exhaustion could be interpreted as defiance. Punishments varied, but the fear of them was constant, hanging over every prisoner like a shadow. Food remained scarce. By midday, hunger had sharpened into something deeper. Meals were small and inconsistent, often little more than thin soup. For many, it was not enough to sustain the level of labor demanded of them. Weakness spread quickly, and those who could not keep up faced serious consequences. Despite this, prisoners found ways, however small, to support one another. A shared piece of bread. A warning whispered at the right moment. A brief act of kindness in a place designed to eliminate it. These moments, though fragile, helped some hold on to a sense of humanity. In the distance, trains continued to arrive. New groups of prisoners stepped onto the platform, disoriented and uncertain of what lay ahead. For those already inside the camp, the sight was a reminder of how the system never stopped. It expanded, processed, and continued with relentless efficiency. The day stretched on, each hour blending into the next. Fatigue deepened. Muscles ached. Yet stopping was not an option. Because inside Auschwitz, survival was not just about enduring the present, it was about navigating a system where every moment carried risk, and every decision could have consequences. And the day was only halfway over. By afternoon, exhaustion had settled into every movement. The pace did not slow. Under the watch of guards, prisoners continued their labor across Auschwitz-Birkenau, their bodies weakening while the demands remained the same. The sun, whether hidden behind clouds or blazing overhead, marked the passage of time, but offered no relief. For many, this was the most difficult part of the day. Energy reserves were nearly gone. Hunger gnawed constantly. Even standing upright required effort. Yet the work continued, mechanical and unending. Those who faltered risked being noticed, and being noticed could be dangerous. Within the camp, another layer of fear quietly unfolded. At unpredictable moments, selections could take place. Prisoners were ordered to line up, sometimes after hours of labor, sometimes without warning. They stood in rows as officials observed them closely. Weakness, illness, or injury could determine a person's fate in seconds. A gesture, a glance, a simple decision, and lives changed instantly. No one spoke during these moments. There was only silence, tension, and the sound of boots on hard ground. Prisoners tried to stand straighter, appear stronger, hide their suffering. Even those who were barely able to stand forced themselves to remain steady. Because survival, in that moment, depended on perception. Elsewhere in the camp, the system continued to operate with chilling precision. Trains arrived, new prisoners were processed, and the routines repeated. For those already inside, it reinforced a harsh reality. The camp was not slowing down, it was functioning exactly as designed. Despite everything, small acts of resilience persisted. A prisoner might quietly support another who was struggling to stand. Someone might share a brief word of encouragement. These moments were fragile, often unnoticed, but they carried meaning in a place where humanity was constantly under pressure. As the afternoon stretched on, shadows began to lengthen across the camp. The end of the workday approached, but it did not bring relief. Because evening inside Auschwitz brought its own trials. And for many, the hardest moments were still ahead. As evening approached, the pace of labor finally slowed, but relief did not come with it. Prisoners were ordered to return from their work sites, moving in exhausted columns back toward the barracks of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Their steps were heavier now, their bodies drained after hours of relentless effort. But the day was not over. Roll call began again. Once more, thousands were forced to stand in formation, lined up in rows across the camp. The fading light of the sun gave way to cold air and deepening shadows. Names were not called. Numbers were counted, recounted, checked again. If something did not match, no one moved. Minutes turned into hours. The temperature dropped, especially during colder months. Thin uniforms offered little protection. Some prisoners swayed from exhaustion, others struggled to remain standing. Still, they endured, because collapsing could bring immediate consequences. The psychological strain during these moments was immense. After a full day of labor, the body demanded rest. But the system demanded stillness, silence, and obedience. The waiting became its own form of suffering, uncertain, prolonged, and unavoidable. Around them, the camp grew quieter. Smoke drifted in the distance. Guard towers remained lit, their presence constant. The sense of being watched never disappeared, not during work, not during rest, not even during these final hours of the day. Eventually, the count was accepted. Prisoners were dismissed back to their barracks, but even this offered little comfort. Inside, overcrowded spaces awaited them. Wooden bunks packed tightly together. Minimal space to lie down. No real privacy. Dinner was distributed. Small portions, barely enough to sustain those who had labored all day. Hunger remained, just as it had in the morning. Yet within the barracks, something else existed too. Quiet conversations. Shared moments. A sense of fragile connection between people who understood each other's reality without needing words. In a place built on control and dehumanization, these small human bonds still survived. Night settled over Auschwitz. But darkness did not bring peace. Because even in the silence, fear remained, of what tomorrow might bring, of whether strength would last, of whether survival was still possible. And as prisoners lay down on hard wooden bunks, one truth lingered in every mind. If they made it through this day, another one was already waiting. Night inside Auschwitz-Birkenau was never truly silent. Even in darkness, the camp remained alive with quiet movement, the distant sound of boots, the creak of wooden barracks, the restless shifting of those trying to sleep. For many prisoners, rest was uncertain. Hunger, cold, and fear made sleep fragile and easily broken. A single day had passed. But inside Auschwitz, days did not feel separate. They blended together into a continuous cycle. Morning roll calls, endless labor, constant surveillance, and nights filled with uncertainty. Time lost its meaning. Survival became the only measure left. For those imprisoned there, the future was never guaranteed. Each morning brought the same question. Would they have the strength to endure another day? Each evening carried the same uncertainty. Would they still be there tomorrow? Yet even within this system, something remarkable endured. Human resilience. In whispered conversations, in shared pieces of bread, in the simple act of standing beside another person, there were small, quiet reminders of humanity. These moments did not change the system, but they resisted it in the only ways possible. Because Auschwitz was designed to strip people of identity, to reduce them to numbers, to erase who they were. And yet, they remembered. Today, Auschwitz-Birkenau stands not just as a historical site, but as a reminder. A reminder of what happened during the Holocaust. A reminder of the consequences of hatred, dehumanization, and unchecked power. And a reminder of the millions of lives affected, each one a story that deserves to be remembered. This was not just one day. It was a reality repeated over and over again.